Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. It is November 21st, and right now we're looking at the Langley Doppler radar on the Washington coast, and you can see this precipitation moving into Vancouver Island, and of course you'd have the Oregon coastline down here. This will be spreading across the region. It's going to be weakening as it does, so we'll take a look at the models and see what they're showing as far as precipitation is concerned with this frontal system. You can see it here on the infrared satellite imagery as well. You can see Washington, Oregon there, and you can see that precipitation streaming into Vancouver Island as we speak. Taking a look at the current hazards, you can see we got some dense fog advisories across western Oregon, and check out across Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming. You got winter storm watches, you got winter weather advisories. Some cold Arctic air moving down is going to bring some snowfall, especially for the higher terrain, and some very cold temperatures with it as well. And as always, we'll take a look at the extended forecast here in the Pacific Northwest. It looks like we might start to turn active again here at the very end of November or into early December, and we'll look at some of the weather models on that here in a moment. If you want to save 10% off on a nice, affordable home weather station, click on that link down below to save 10% off. You can see the station actually creates its own forecast, and it's got a lightning detection system with it as well, and it stores all this data for you in the cloud, and you can visit this on your desktop as well. So highly recommended. Taking a look at the 100-meter wind speed on the European, you can see the frontal system off the coastline that we saw on the Doppler radar, and you can see the interesting wind shift associated with that as it pushes down through tonight into tomorrow morning. So that wind shift coming all the way down the Oregon coastline there as well. And you can see some north winds streaming through the Okanagan River Gap there, down the Puget Sound. And eventually this Arctic air will be pushing down here across a lot of Montana, Idaho, and Wyoming here as well. More on that here in a moment also. Now, taking a look at the frontal system on last night's European run, you can see it's clearly weakening as it moves across the area, but it should bring some precipitation to western Oregon here in western Washington. Some snowfall, but it's probably not going to impact Snoqualmie Pass. Maybe a little bit Stevens and the higher terrain around it, but not too big of a deal there. However, you can kind of see this Arctic air sagging down across a lot of Idaho, Montana, Wyoming. Nice pressure gradient associated with it. So going to be some blustery and gusty conditions with that snow falling, very cold temperatures out there. So heads up if you're traveling out across Idaho, western Montana into Wyoming here over the next few days. And we'll take a look at more on the snowfall totals here on that in a bit as well. This is looking at the NAM 3KM. This is the 12Z run hot off the press. You got Washington, Oregon here. These gusty winds have been ongoing here across some of the gorge and the Stampede Gap are going to be relaxing here as we go on into the afternoon hours. You can see that just kind of shuts off there, that easterly component. And you can see, again, that frontal system, kind of an interesting wind shift there to the north down the coastline. And nothing too crazy with those winds there, although they will be kind of strong, especially out over the open water across some of southwest Oregon. But you can also see here that Okanagan River Gap, the terrain feature here in eastern Washington that goes all the way up into British Columbia. It's actually a cold air conduit. When we do got our Arctic outbreaks, the winds will be roaring through here and pouring cold air out into eastern Washington. You can see the north winds there across some of western Washington here as well. Now, taking a look at the amount of precipitation, this is a running 24-hour total on last night's European, and you can see it right on 0.4 of an inch for Seattle. Just over 0.2 for Portland there. Bigger amounts across some of the coastal areas here in the Olympic Mountains, North Cascades, and you can see the rain shadowing in effect for a lot of eastern Washington. Some of this precipitation trying to get into eastern portions of Oregon here as well. We'll take it. And as we scroll on into Thursday, there's going to be some precip going on across some of Idaho and Montana and Wyoming, which we'll look at here in a moment. This is Bellingham calling for about 0.4 of an inch of rain there, and then you can see we dry out for a bit here through the weekend on into early next week. And then you can see Seattle, Tacoma, similar picture there, maybe 0.4 of an inch, maybe half an inch out of this. So rain lovers, enjoy that one because we're going to dry out here for a few days, and we're going to look at the extended here in a moment as well. But this is looking out towards Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming. 24-hour snow Kuchera ratio, which takes into account the lower levels of the atmosphere and its temperature versus the 10-to-1 ratio. But you can see some of the snow piling up, especially across the higher terrain here as we go on in through the Thursday morning period, and then we go into Thursday afternoon, and some of the valley areas might pick up some snow with this as well. But look at some of Yellowstone, southern Montana, southwest Montana here, picking up some big amounts across the higher terrain. It's this Arctic air mass sagging south across the Rocky Mountains there, and that's where the NAM 3KM run ends there as of this morning at 60 hours. Now, looking at apparent temperature, this takes into account the wind chill. So I'm going to put this into motion here, and you can see the diurnal kind of heating there, and then we go on into a Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, tomorrow morning, but then watch this cold air. You can kind of see that Arctic air sagging across the higher terrain here. Some areas going to have some wind chills below zero, especially across the highest mountain mountain areas there, and then you can see that cold air continuing to sag down south across the area. So pretty chilly air out there. Heads up if you're traveling eastbound. It's going to kind of be a shock to the system there if you're traveling through the higher terrain, maybe across I-90 there as well. Watch out for some winter driving conditions as you go on in through Thursday across some of Montana and Wyoming, especially if you're going out towards Yellowstone for some reason also. Now looking at this, look at this 24-hour 2-meter temperature change. Some areas are going to drop by 30 degrees across Wyoming and some of Montana here over a 24-hour period. You can clearly see this colder air moving in. This would be Thursday afternoon change from Wednesday afternoon. Now, taking a look at wider view of things here, we got Alaska, British Columbia, Washington, Oregon. The high pressure it's been driving the offshore winds here, even across some of the Gorge and Stampede Gap areas, and the powerful winds across some of Southern California. You can watch my California videos if you want more information on that. Strong storm up into southeast Alaska there. And then you can see this next Arctic high coming down and bumping up against the Rockies there. That's what's going to bring that snowfall and those cold temperatures to Idaho, Wyoming, and Montana shown there. And then you can kind of see that slide down and off to the east there. But now let's take a look at some extended forecast stuff. We've got the GFS, the 06Z as of last night, the ensemble mean. The ensemble's not done running yet this morning in the 12Z, so I'll just show you last night's what's going on here. So we got some ridging here still building here. There's that Arctic air and kind of a trough setting up over the Intermountain West. Ridging remains over the Pacific Northwest, going to keep us dry here through the weekend at least. And then as we go through next week here, and not in a big rush to bring things back, but then you can see the GFS start to show some troughing off the coast of California. But then it also shows the Gulf of Alaska troughing get going here as we go on in through early December. So we're looking way off into fantasy land here, but the models have kind of been pointing at this off and on, the increase in some storm activity here off of the Pacific Northwest as we go through early December. And we'll watch how that trends, of course, here over the next few days. This is the 12Z GFS. So this shows the frontal system rolling through today. Some mountain snow. Again, not a big deal for Snoqualmie and Stevens Pass, but as you can see, the Arctic air mass sags south, bringing that snowfall for Idaho, Montana, Wyoming. Heads up for your traveling out and about, even out of Boise, going eastbound out towards Idaho Falls and whatnot. Watch out for that snow flying out there. And you see that Arctic high move down across some of the lower 48 there. And then we remain dry for a few days. Another storm into southeast Alaska. We're now on into next week. We're looking at about Tuesday of next week here. Continuing on into Thursday afternoon of next week. And finally, some storms start to activate again here off the west coast. Kind of moving down towards California on the latest GFS here. But then you can see another frontal system finally reach us. But this is way off in fantasy land here. So plenty of time to monitor this and watch this. But eventually the storm track will return. Just how long are we going to get a break here for across Pacific Northwest? That is the big question. Here's the 6 to 10 day precipitation probability outlook. This goes all the way through the end of November. Clearly the below average signal here across the Pacific Northwest. And this is 7-day. And this is just from the first system. So we're going to get this system rolling through. Then we're not expecting anything after that. So you can see maybe a half an inch for Seattle, 3/10 for Portland there. And not much for eastern Washington. Some across the higher terrain of eastern Oregon there. But this is going to be associated with that Arctic air out across Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming for some big snowfall amounts, especially across the higher elevations there. And this is looking at Seattle. We're right at 5.36 here, so we're going to get another half an inch, but we might not get much for the rest of November here. So we might actually finish November below average after that pretty intense wet period we were dealing with. You know, halfway through November, we were up over 5 inches of precipitation here for Seattle. But yeah, we might actually end up below average if you can believe that. But we'll see how that goes. You know, we still have, 10 days to go through the month here, or 9 days, whatever it is. But you can see the 43 mile per hour gust there back on the 19th, and my weather station at 45 there. So kind of interesting there. That was actually the strongest wind so far this season. Taking a quick look at this, there was an easterly gust there. You can see Tanner crossing North Bend there, 47 miles per hour. Not a bad gust here. And you can actually see Snoqualmie checking in at 38. So we did have some decent east winds rolling through the Stampede Gap yesterday. And check it out. The gorge down here between Oregon and Washington. You can see Crown Point 71 there, and you can see Corbett there 61 miles per hour. Checking up here, you can see a three-corner rock at 55. So we did have some gusty winds rolling through there yesterday as well, but that's going to cut off and end here as we go through the afternoon today. But anyway, yeah, frontal system rolls through, and then we're kind of in no man's land for a bit here. So we'll continue to watch the extended forecast. Things can still change rapidly, and it looks like we might start to pick up that storm track back into the region here as we go through early December, but no promises just yet. Just something interesting to watch as we go on in through the next couple of days. So anyway, hope you guys are enjoying these videos. Click like and subscribe. We'll do this again tomorrow, and I will talk to you guys then.